Basically, look at it as a generational thing. Someone my age and older like privacy a lot more than others. But, people that are on Facebook and, putting on exactly where they're at, for lunch, dinner, this and that, they're not as much worried about privacy.
This is Velocitize Talks, and I'm Eric Jones. I'm here with Mike Svanascini, who's the co-founder and president of American Eagle.
Good afternoon.
It's good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. American Eagle has been around since the late 70s. And ever since the list was published, you've been consistently ranked as one of the top 100 digital companies here in Chicago. Wondered if you could talk about that whole evolution and how you've been successful over all those years.
Sure. So in 1978, the company was actually formed as an Apple II software development company. So from 1978 probably till like the late 80s, we sold Apple II software. And the Apple II software market was for the Apple II, Apple IIe. We actually have an Apple II machine in the first 100 serial numbers of all the machines.
Oh, wow.
So we sold programs that did adventure games, utilities. A utility called Zoom Graphics was our number one thing. And my parents pretty much ran out of the basement. And I ran the shrink wrap machine, and my brother was more the technical guy. So since then, around 1995, so we got out of software in 86, 87, because it was all Mac and the market changed. We went into hardware, believe it or not. So my brother, who was pretty much in high school, then started selling network systems to different offices, that sort of thing. So in 1995, one of his customers, the Big Ten conference, said, "Hey, you're our computer guy. We need one of these website things." So at that point, that's when we started building websites based on customer need. And from there, what we did is we didn't specialize in one certain area because all our customers were in different areas. So we had law firms, accounting firms, not-for-profits, sports customers, and basically grew those verticals over the years, from one person we hired who's still with us today, Ryan Malkorath, our CTO, to now we're about 420 people, and we need about 25 more people right now because business is pretty good. So we're excited about that.
You represent a whole host of different companies, everybody from Beretta to International Paper, to various government entities. How have the needs changed from the mid 90s to today? And also, how is your approach different depending on the different type of client that you have?
So a lot has changed since 1995, starting with screen size, design, everything. So in the early days, everyone was about their look and feel. So that they just wanted something that wowed everybody, and they wanted to be unique, different, that sort of thing. And I think over time, businesses and governments, not-for-profit, sports, they figured out that the user experience is really the key to the whole scenario. And having users, go from one place to another easily, find what they're looking for, check out as easy as they can. And that's, you take a customer like Beretta, they're a gun manufacturer, first, but they have clothing lines, other lines. So you have to get in their heads, and say, what is unique about your business? What's different? There's a lot of people that don't like guns. So in some countries, you can't show a handgun on a website. So we really sit down with every different customer because we think they're all unique in certain ways and try to bring that unique experience out for all of them.
So when you think about user experience, do you think that's the key to marketing today, creating those unique and very, very differentiated experiences for customers?
Definitely. I think it's really the key to any website. It's pretty much been the key to the web since the beginning, but I think people are finally have figured it out. And, the key for anyone is get to that site, get to the information they want, whether you're looking at shoes or you're looking for a sports story, whether you're looking for government information, whether they go for the search box, through the navigation, through some other method to get, through a landing page on your website. The key is that the people come in easy, come in fast, and get out and check out fast.
Do you think, are there any companies that sort of stand out that you would highlight that have incredible user experiences?
Yeah, I think, one of our longest term customers has been WeatherTech, the car mat company, and we've been working with them since 1999, since the last millennium, he always says, the owner. And basically that site since the beginning of the site has been about user experience. Everyone has a unique car. So when you go to the WeatherTech site, you start with your year, make, model, shows you all the products. We've been doing that since probably the second launch in like 2001, 2002. And from that, the business has grown from, a few $1,000,000 online to, hundreds of $1,000,000 online today. And it's always been about user experience from not only the web perspective, but from the product perspective. So they kind of mold the best of every world.
How, so KPIs, right? You mentioned how, the success of that business has, has jumped because of, success on the website. What are some of the KPIs that you typically use on, for your clients, and how does that differ in, let's say, the government or nonprofit sector?
Sure. So KPIs we feel are important for any customer. So no matter what type of customer you are, if you're an e-commerce store, of course you want the checkout. But for some e-commerce stores, you also want people to come back, the subscription models. So you have to really manage your KPIs, really well together. And over time, the differences we see when we go into a government entity or something like that, or a not-for-profit, is a lot of it's information-based. So that's really where, I focus a lot on search for the KPIs. So, one simple method to determine KPIs is when you see a website, look at their KPIs from their search results, because that usually can be the easiest spot, to improve right away once you look at that and give people a better search experience.
You have a lot of partners across the various CMSs. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, about maybe WordPress and how you view WordPress, and any changes that you've seen over the last couple of years.
So AmericanEagle.com, we're a little unique in that when we started in this business, we did everything ourselves. So we always had our own CMS, our own e-commerce platform, which we still make today. But as time went on, we started working with all the other CMSs as well. So WordPress, Sitecore, Sitefinity, Actron. There's, it's too numerous to mention. And we have always worked with WordPress pretty much from the beginning, more starting as a blog tool. And, initially there were a lot of issues with WordPress because of security, that sort of thing. And then over the years, and especially working with WP Engine, especially, the security problems have really, gotten away from people. So the security is so much better today. WP Engine has a security, system in place that's just fantastic. So we work a lot with WP Engine whenever we do a WordPress project, basically to ensure that once the project launches, we still manage the website, but we don't have to worry about all the security, all the different plugins, that sort of thing. So our WordPress practice right now is our biggest growing practice in the company. And we do some very small sites to some very large sites on WordPress.
And you attribute that to the fact that finally the security is there for WordPress?
Definitely. I think from a usability perspective, if you're an administrator of a website, I don't think you can do better than WordPress. It's easy to use. There's plugins everywhere that you can use for various features. So it's such an incredible platform, but the security thing was such an issue for a time period. And WP Engine is really, no one solves the security, thing completely, but it's made it so much better than it was in the past. So I think WordPress has probably the biggest future of any CMS right now.
Yeah, I mean, certainly passing the 30% of the web,
Right.
That's an enormous,
Yeah.
Testament to its success. Switching gears a little bit, you talked about, blogs and content creation. How do you see the role of content, maybe evolving both to keep people on websites and move them through customer journeys, and even, beginning to be used in various innovative ways through e-commerce?
Content has always been the key to any website. And, if you look at Google as an example, what do they look for? The best content out there. So the key to any website is really making sure your content is, relevant to the user. Not, people used to just throw as many content in there as you can, in order to get, a good SEO result. Today, the way users are, your content has to be clean, concise, and very easy to check out or do whatever your KPIs are on the matter. And I think going forward, in e-commerce especially, one of the great things about e-commerce is you don't sell someone once, you keep selling them. So that's where, whether it's broadcast email, whether there's notifications on your phone, there's so much, as long as you're giving relevant content, you can increase your sales tremendously just by doing it correctly.
So you have a background in the law. Given that background and given the sort of trade-off between privacy and personalization, how do you counsel brands to approach this, and how do you begin to think about all that given GDPR and some of the other things that have been in the news like Facebook?
Yeah, so privacy is always a huge issue in the web since the beginning. You also have the cloud, lack of privacy in the cloud. There's always new articles where something's being hacked from one area or another. So what we do is basically look at it as a generational thing. Someone my age and older like privacy a lot more than others, but people that are on Facebook and putting on exactly where they're at, for lunch, dinner, this and that, they're not as much worried about privacy. So I think the market's going to change over the next few years. I think it's in a state of where people are panicking about having this privacy, but they don't realize they're giving up so much of their privacy anyway with just the things they do day to day. So I'm really interested to see how it goes in the future, but I think there's going to be less and less privacy in the future just because it's going to be more convenient for you to buy something or do something by giving up, a little bit of privacy. And if you're holding a mobile phone now with Google on it, with Facebook on it, between all the companies, they know what you're doing every step of the way anyway. So if you really research it, it's pretty scary that you really don't have any privacy anymore.
One of the areas where American Eagle has really distinguished itself is in creating websites that are quite accessible. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about all the work that you've done in that regard.
Sure. So we've done a lot of government work throughout the years. So in 2008, we actually did the White House for the incoming administration of President Obama. And we had to launch, January 20th at noon, that day. And accessibility, that site had to be completely accessible out of the box, from launch. So back then we really got a great education because we worked with some of the best accessibility experts in the field of accessibility. And it's really, if you build the site correctly, it's really easy to do and to maintain after that. So I think it's important, especially with the new technologies come out like voice activation, visual activation, all this different technology, if you start with a very accessible web presence and mobile presence, it just makes it easier for you and for the customer experience, not only for people with disabilities, but those standards work for people without disabilities as well. Having the right coloring on the website, having the right font on the website, that only doesn't help people with disabilities, it helps everybody. So it's just a good way to think about developing a website today.
So, maybe diving into the voice and gestures and things like that, where do you think the future of digital experiences is headed? Will we be accessing websites as such in the not too distant future?
Yeah, you can go to your phone now and just call up a website. I think we're developing technology now for searching on a website through voice recognition, because right now when you type in a search, it's usually, blue shoes or something like that, but you have to adjust your search differently because you're like, hey, I need a pair of blue shoes. Can you find it for me? So that's a much different way of, doing a search and figuring out what the people actually mean than the old style of search. So I think over the next few years it's going to change. With Amazon right now, you can have a conversation with Alexa. There's a conversation mode that'll just start talking with you, which I haven't gotten to that point yet, but someday maybe. But the other thing is payment processing, that sort of thing. You're going to be able to just say, if you're on Nordstroms.com or WeatherTech.com, you're just going to say, order this. And your phone's going to put in your credit card, everything. You're not going to have to do anything. And it's going to make life so much easier, from, delivering your groceries to all facets. We do a lot of mobile ticketing too for transit. And that's getting easier. You're going to, just walk on the train and your phone is going to automatically just through the NFC chip, register your account and you're there.
Mike Svanascini from American Eagle.